All right, today we're diving into the pretty shadowy world of Graham Greene. Now, this was a man who was convinced that a spy thriller could also be, a really profound moral tale. But could he actually pull it off? Let's find out. That question really gets right to the very heart of his work. For Graham Greene, the answer was a big yes. He basically built his entire literary universe in that fascinating gray area, somewhere between the sacred and the profane.
So, who was this guy? Well, Graham Greene was an English writer, and his career spanned pretty much the whole 20th century. He was an absolute master of these dark, psychologically complex stories, and he loved to set them in the world's most politically volatile hotspots. We're talking real powder kegs. Okay, so here's how we're going to break it all down. First up, The Man of Two Minds. Then we'll get into his novels of faith and guilt, followed by his thrillers, spies, and satire. And we'll wrap it all up by looking at his legacy of ambiguity. All right, so to really get a handle on Greene, you absolutely have to start with the central duality in his career. I mean, he actually created a division in his own work that, really, it tells you everything you need to know about his approach to storytelling. So Greene literally split his own books into two different categories. On one side, you had his serious novels, the ones that really wrestle with big themes like faith, sin, and God. Then, on the other side, you had what he called his entertainments. These were the gripping thrillers all about spies and politics. But here's the kicker, the real genius of it all, is that the line between those two was always wonderfully blurry. So let's take a closer look at those serious novels, okay? This is where Greene really dives deep into the struggles of the human soul. And our first case study is an absolute masterpiece, The Power and the Glory. This one is set during a really intense period of anti-Catholic persecution down in Mexico. The main character is this fascinating, deeply flawed whiskey priest. I mean, this is a guy who drinks, he has a child, he's just riddled with doubt, and yet somehow he keeps trying to perform his duties. And this just perfectly illustrates one of Greene's core ideas, that grace, and maybe even a kind of holiness, can be found in the most broken and unlikely people. Okay, now let's jump to a totally different kind of moral battleground. We're heading to West Africa during World War II, for his classic novel, The Heart of the Matter. Now, this novel is the perfect illustration of a key concept in Greene's world, moral ambiguity. The main character, a guy named Scobie, is completely trapped. He's caught between his duty, his faith, his pity for his wife, and his love for his mistress. There are just no easy answers here, none at all. And that's exactly the point. Greene forces you, the reader, to live right there inside that gut-wrenching conflict with him. All right, now let's pivot to the other side of his work, those so-called entertainments. But seriously, don't let the name fool you. These books are every bit as deep, they're just cleverly packaged as thrillers and satires. And we're going to start with an absolute classic of British crime fiction, Brighton Rock. Trust me, this is way more than just a gangster story. So the novel follows this teenage sociopath, a guy named Pinky Brown, through the really grim, seedy criminal underworld of Brighton. But even here, right in the middle of a fast-paced thriller, Greene is digging into the nature of damnation and evil. He contrasts Pinky's pure viciousness with the naive faith of Rose, the girl he manipulates. It just goes to show, even an entertainment can ask some seriously profound questions. But hey, Greene's entertainments weren't all so grim. The man could also be brilliantly funny. So let's completely shift gears now, from gangsters to straight-up comedy, with Our Man in Havana. The plot of this one is just brilliant. Get this, a vacuum cleaner salesman in Cuba gets recruited by MI6. The only problem, he has no actual secrets to sell. So what does he do? He just makes them up. He invents fake agents, he draws diagrams of top-secret military installations that are actually based on vacuum parts, and his bosses back in London believe every single word. And the crazy part is, Greene knew this world firsthand from his own time in intelligence, which is what makes his satire so sharp. Just a biting critique of the paranoia and the sheer absurdity of Cold War spy games. So how do we bring these two sides of Greene together? The praying and the spying, the sacred and the profane. To do that, let's take a look at his overall legacy. One thing that really unites all of his work is the setting. Just look at this map of his literary world. Greene didn't write about quiet English villages. No way. He went straight to the front lines of global conflict. We're talking revolutionary Mexico, colonial Africa, pre-war Vietnam, pre-revolution Cuba, dictatorial Haiti. He set his intense moral dramas on the world's most chaotic and dangerous stages. And this, right here, is really his ultimate achievement. It's summed up perfectly. He had this incredible ability to tell a story that you just could not put down, while at the exact same time, he's making you question everything you thought you knew about faith, politics, and human nature. So, when you boil it all down, it didn't matter if you were reading a serious novel or an entertainment. These were the themes he came back to again and again. That moral ambiguity, the constant struggle between faith and guilt, the pain of betrayal and loyalty, and what he called the human factor. You know, all those messy emotions that completely wreck the perfect plans of spies and government. And all of that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. Graham Greene never, ever gave his readers easy answers. He lived and wrote in that murky, complicated middle ground. So in our world today, a world that so often demands that we pick a side, that everything is black and white, what can we learn from a master of the gray areas? What's the real value in exploring ambiguity? That's something I'll leave with you. Thanks for joining.